My name is Wesley Littlefield with YourBassGuide.com, and today we're learning how to tie and rig the chatterbait. This is one of my all-time favorite baits to use, and once you start using it, you'll see why. If all this gear looks like too much, don't worry. Down in the description below, we're going to have it listed for you so you know what to get, and it just makes it a lot easier that way. Now, let's get started tying a chatterbait. At first glance, a chatterbait can be confusing. You know, do you tie here, or do you tie it here, or do you tie it here, or do you flip it over and tie here? I mean, there's a lot of places that you could tie a chatterbait, so it can be confusing. But the answer is very simple. Tie it right here on this eye here. This one is where it will give it the correct action that will trigger bites. So I typically use a fisherman's knot. You can use any knot you want. And, you know, I mean, it doesn't matter. Everybody's got their favorite, so use your favorite. Normally I would wet the line, but since we're on camera and I'm not actually using this to fish, I won't. Put it through, and cinch it down. Like that. There's that. And my clippers. And there we go. So that's how you tie it. Really simple, really easy. Now we're gonna rig it. Alrighty. So when rigging a chatterbait, there are all kinds of different trailers you can use. A lot of guys like a fluke style or one that doesn't have a lot of action. Other guys like a paddle tail that does have a lot of action. And I personally sometimes like these beaver tail baits that they can have a lot of action. You can take them off and they don't have as much action. But it's really what the fish want. Here's another one that I actually have. There's all kinds of different names for these, like a frog, or these are called like I think my grandpa calls them pork chops or pork and something. But yeah, there's just all kinds of different trailers you can use and are effective. But like I said, most guys do prefer just something that's not going to inflict a lot of its own action onto the bait, because the chatterbait itself actually already has a lot of action. Alright, so how to rig it. We are going to take the top of the bait, the top of this fluke, and point it in the other direction away from your bait. So this is the top, this side is the top, and it's pointed away from the chatterbait. We're going to run it through and try to keep it as straight as possible. And I think that might be far enough. We're going to come through. I'm going to check it here. Yes, that looks good. We can see that it's going to run straight. And that little hook, if you didn't see it, this little hook right here will actually help keep your bait on there. If they grab it and just grab the bait, it won't come flying off real easy. So the bait should look like that. And that is guaranteed to get a fish's attention. If you can catch it, that's another story. But that's how you rig, like a fluke style. I'll take this one off and show you just what I did with it. It's basically the same concept. You want to remember to keep it as straight as possible. So we're going to take it, get that skirting off. And this one, it kind of has a top. I use if you want the blue sparkle to be down, I put it up. I mean, it might matter to some people, but to me it does not. So we're going to run it through the top and come once again about an inch, quarter of an inch or so, come out of the bait and up. And see how it has a little bit of a kick up like that? I don't want that. That'll make the bait swim weird and it won't vibrate correctly. So we're gonna come back. I'm gonna come back through and go a little bit deeper this time. And come back out. And that's too far. See how it curves back with the bait when you straighten it out? We don't want that either. All right, one last time here. Shoot for the middle. I think that was the same hole I just went through because it was really easy. That's better. Much better. Now we're looking straight. There's the hook, there's the bait, it's straight. It's gonna run a lot straighter. And that is how you rig a chatterbait. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below and we will get them answered and point you in the best direction possible so that you can catch more fish. The chatterbait is deadly effective, especially during the spring, but really any time of the year. There are several ways you can fish it, and that's why it's a great bait to go to at any point in the year. You can fish it slow when water's cold in the winter and early springs, or you can speed it up as the water warms up with the summer and later spring and into the fall. There's so many different ways to fish it, really. It's not just cast out there and reel back. You can do that. I've caught a bunch of fish doing that. You can also cast it out and drag it back like you would a jig. You know, they call this a bladed jig for a reason. You can fish it just like you would a jig as well. You can also cause it to have a lot of erratic movements where you reel it really fast, stop it, let it die, sink to the bottom, pick it back up really, really fast, twitching your rod like you do with a jerkbait. I mean, there's just really no wrong way to do it. You just got to figure out what the fish want at the time. I guess that would be the one wrong way to do it, is if they're not biting it, change it up with something else. Enough about how to fish it, where to fish it. This bait really shines, believe it or not, in weeds. Most weeds. There's some weeds that if it's like a really thick stem weed, it's not so great. It'll get hung up and stay hung up. But if they're smaller weeds, you can rip it through. And usually if you get hung up on those weeds and once you rip it through, that's when you're going to get the bite, is when it breaks loose and it has that real chaotic, erratic motion to it. It's not great around woody areas. I've tried it myself and I've lost chatterbaits doing that. So I really don't recommend like brush, laydowns. Now standing timber, it's a different story. Standing timber, cast it out past it, reel it next to it, bump it if you want to. That is great. And around rocky areas, hard bottom areas, in moss, if I have not had luck fishing in ponds with it where it's really mossy, the moss just gets tangled up on the blade and it doesn't allow it to vibrate real well. So I would recommend staying away from mossy areas, but grassy areas. So when I say grassy areas, I'm not talking about moss. I don't go deep with it, so it's not really an offshore bait for me. It's more of like 10-foot tops, and really 10 foot's pushing it. More like 8 and shallower, and it's dynamite right between about 8 foot and basically skimming it on top of the water. All right, enough about how to fish it, where to fish it. Let's talk about color selection. It's going to be the same as like your hard bait lures. You're going to want like a black and blue when the water's really stained or dirty, muddy, and you're going to want your more natural looking colors when the water's a lot more clear and they can see it. And then of course they make like red and oranges. Those work great in the springtime, just like a red and orange crankbait does, where your more natural presentations are going to be a little bit later in the spring and throughout the summer and into the winter, and of course when they're feeding for the fall. You know, I've got a chartreuse colored with a little bit of white that's going to work a little bit more like stained to clear colors. You've still got the natural white color, but you've got that flicker of chartreuse that catches their eye if the water's just a little bit dingy and it's hard to see in it. Other than that, I mean, don't overcomplicate it. Really, you need a clear water one and a non-clear water one, and you've got most of it covered, to be honest. You don't have to have all these other ones to overcomplicate it. I always try to keep it as simple as possible, and I know you can hear the pros list, well, you know, we got to have this, this, and this. Well, they're the pros. They have to catch fish. Most of the time, we're out there just having fun, and these two colors right here are more than likely all that you need. If this video was helpful to you, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we would really appreciate it. Other than that, I hope you guys go out there and catch the biggest bass you've ever caught with a chatterbait, because the big ones absolutely do bite it. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.